Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back yet again.
So, what are we looking at?
We're looking at beautiful Mars.
Do you think there ever was a time when it was beautiful?
I guess that's why I say it's sad, because yes, I do believe there was a time it was beautiful.
So, at first, this was going to be a Vedic astrology one, but then I started thinking, let's do two. I asked Cindy, should we do two? Yeah, and she said yes. So, we're going to first focus on Mars. From what we have gleaned through remote viewing, through our studies, through what we've gotten from the guides as well, as to what the story is with Mars. And then later on today, we're going to put up one that with the astrological impacts of it. And, one of the things that I realized that I'll include in the Vedic astrology one is how Mars has been disguised in so many ways, covered up and disguised.
It really has, and it's been like this thing where people feel that Mars is just the god of war, but Mars is so much more. Mars has a lot of things going on the inside, where at one point it had on the outside, but there's a lot going on the inside now.
Well, and I know she did not read this article, but she's leading into it so well. Scientists suspect Martian surface may be riddled with giant sinkholes, which are caused by widespread underground ice.
But of course it's widespread underground ice. It wouldn't be anything that would be habitable.
No, not at all, right? Couldn't be anything like that. Couldn't be that what was on the surface went inside, as well as perhaps came over here and is actually walking amongst us right now.
That's a very strong inclination that I feel, yes.
So, a team of researchers associated with NASA's search for extraterrestrial intelligence has developed a new theory about the shifting sands visible across Mars, with possible ramifications for the future human colonization. Led by SETI Institute senior research scientist Janice Bishop, the scientists' new theory suggests a thin layer of water ice exists below the surface of Mars' barren landscape. The ice warms under sunlight and loosens surface debris, making it easy pickings for the red planet's many storms that blow debris loose. Underground interactions between water ice, chlorine salts, and sulfates then create vast sinkholes beneath the detritus, adding yet more challenges to human habitation of the already challenging colony contender by turning the landscape into vast, dusty sinkhole swamps. High-resolution imaging science experiment data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter confirmed that the RSL occurs on sun-facing slopes. The team then conducted lab experiments with Martian soil analogs taken from some of the Earth's least hospitable zones, such as the Atacama Desert and Antarctica, to see what impact chlorine salts and sulfates would have on their integrity, even at low temperatures found on Mars. Sure enough, the soil turned into slushy ice near negative 50 degrees Celsius. Wow. Even at that low temp, it was slushy ice, giving way to more free flows of ice between negative 40 and negative 20 Celsius. The research builds on earlier findings about widespread presence of water ice on the Martian surface, but also indicates that the planet is still rather active and evolving, yielding new challenges and new opportunities for future human colonists and astrobiologists back here on Earth. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, I see a whole lot of, maybe a little disclosure, some covering up, or leading into disclosure. Before it was just this desolate planet. There's absolutely nothing that could possibly ever live on it or in it. And now here there's slush.
Yeah, and the thing I got when we're talking about colonists is, well, what about who's already there? I mean, for one, you've seen that we're already there.
Absolutely, we're already there. There's, what's interesting is when I look inside, I see a lot of beings. It's a very scientific atmosphere where they do a lot of testing, they do a lot of work, but they're kind of busy, just like we would be, maybe in a clean room.
Now you see humans, right? Regular, everyday Homo sapiens sapiens. Now you see them working with other entities?
I do see them working with other entities that are like between us and reptilian, and they get along. And I think the word that comes to mind is like a genius. These beings are just brilliant and they're working together. And there's programs where they're working with Venus and working with Earth. So there's a lot going on there under the surface, no pun intended, that we are not told about and we might hear about in this lifetime.
Russia has recently talked about they don't care how barren and inhospitable it looks, but they're going to go to Venus, and they have the intentions of exploring Venus more. That's interesting because what we're told is it's so hot, it would melt steel basically, and the rain is acid, but yet you've gotten a picture that's totally different.
No, Venus is very beautiful. Venus is green, lush, habitable, usable, and I think it's been deliberately kind of hidden from media view because look at it. It's like Earth's sister planet. How could it be so inhabitable? How could it? And when I go there and look, all I see is tropical.
Interesting too. I had an experience that I've shared with you all about 2 years ago, where I was looking up at the moon. Somebody else was with me, and they were looking up at the moon too. It was a full moon, and all of a sudden, the face of the moon went blank. And we looked at each other like, okay, we weren't tripping, we weren't doing anything. I didn't even have a beer. And then it went back to looking like the usual face of the moon. Many people have talked about technology, and doing like a hologram imprint on top of, the moon's surface to make it look a certain way. And then we've seen times when it looks to ripple, as if it's like a glitch going on, as if you were watching an old film and film reel, and it had a little bend or something into the film where it just made the whole reality kind of ripple. I feel like we've been deceived so much with Venus and also with Mars because, I think Mars probably had life before Earth did, or at least concurrently.
Yeah, I feel Mars has the technology, so obviously something did happen to that planet. These beings were able to quickly go underground and restart their society and civilization and testing.
So when you say humans working with these semi-reptilian hybrids, did they look like the beings that you saw on the Oumuamua ship?
Oh gosh, no, they're more a little bigger than regular human size. The beings I saw on the Muamua ship, they were like warrior soldiers. They meant business.
So these don't feel as dark as those.
No, I feel like they want to learn and they're testing and they actually enjoy their environment and they get along. And, if any one of you have ever worked in like an office, a cubicle environment, or in a clean room, that's very much what it feels like when I look under the surface at Mars and look at these beings getting along and working together.
Interesting. So we've gotten from Corey Good and others of this existence of these pre-Adamites, as he calls them, or as some have called them, Homo Capensis or Homo Capensis, with these beings that are humanoid, taller, but they have elongated heads. That's the thing. And what's fascinating is we found skulls, and I've done like at least 4 or 5 videos on this over the years. They found these skulls in Peru. They found these skulls around the Black Sea. We can see them in depictions in Egyptian art as well. Now, I asked you about these beings, and would you share like what you feel about them, the visions that you've gotten about them?
Yeah, there are some that did come from Mars, and what I get is that there is already beings here on Earth that were very much like these beings that came from Mars, and they have worked together, are working together, very similar species, similar in shape, size. Their brain capacity, their smarts, their attitude, their disposition. So that's what I gather from them when I look at them.
So do you feel that sometime they came over in mass from Mars, perhaps after a cataclysm?
Yeah, definitely got as many as they could and came over after that major cataclysm, or, I believe it was a war and it just made the top part inhabitable. Some went inside, some came to Earth to try to reseed and save their race.
And do you feel that they interbred with us?
Most definitely.
Yeah, so interesting, because here we could again take this interpretation as quote unquote fallen angels, because the original interpretation of angel is a messenger, literally. And again, while there are angels, I mean, we've had many interactions with angelic beings. And I just was sharing with you recently that I remembered, it's like it escaped my memory, but boy, it was a powerful moment. It was back in 2009, and I was reading Gnosis of the Cosmic Christ, which was a book on Gnostic Christianity. And it was really resonating with me. And then all of a sudden, the bedroom, I was reading in bed at night, it was probably 10, 11. And all of a sudden, there was this bright, brilliant orb of light that appeared. And, I was with my ex at that time, and we looked at each other because we both saw the light. And then it disappeared. But I took it as a blessing, or like saying that I was on the right path. And I asked you about this.
That was definitely very much a blessing. That was an angel coming in from... I feel that there's a soul stream of the ascended masters, and this was an angel from that soul stream brightening up the room, saying you're on the right track, you're here. It does have very much a Yeshua feeling to it.
So again, while some beings were taken as gods, and they're not gods, they're beings, and yet some are taken as angels or even fallen angels, but they're not. They're beings again. These are flesh and blood. You could poke him and he would say, ouch, stop that. Whereas like with an energy angel, you would go, your hand would go right through it. You would feel maybe a tingling and a vibrating. See, this is where things get really confused and complicated. And you'll get people that will look and say they're fallen angels. Well, they're beings that travel in actual ships. These are. Now, there are other beings that travel in their Merkabas, their light bodies, that are of much higher vibrational frequency and a much higher vibration overall. But these, you could say, in some ways are, well, many of our cousins, so to speak, because they have interbred with us so much.
Mm-hmm. Right. To save their species and carry on and, even have some kind of a rulership here on the planet. That's what's going on there.
And so there is the line of thinking that they still perhaps have bases in Antarctica underneath, as well as there has been discoveries of these bodies. Some of these beings may be anywhere from 8 to 12 feet tall in Antarctica.
Oh, there's so much that they don't tell us. It does get convoluted when I do look and I try to actually figure it out, because what I get is a bunch of pictures, vibrations, words, and I put it all together. But when you start trying to figure out the actual leadership and the rule and everything, that's where it gets difficult. But I do see them. We're not being told the truth by any stretch of the imagination, because these beings know to keep their who they are hidden so they can keep control of us.
And when we think of royalty, they always just married other royalty. They try to keep their bloodlines, quote unquote, pure. We look over here and you can see Jacob R. You guys recognize that name? Look at the shape of his head, right? Now, yeah, he might be the product of many generations of these beings interbreeding with Homo sapiens sapiens. And so he's not quite as pure, but maybe more pure, quote unquote, than others. Shimon Peres, you see the same sort of shape, comparing it to some others as well. It's pretty fascinating when you look at it. And Robert Seffer, again's done great work into some of this. Now, some people more than others, you could tell, that there's something unusual there. Wow, they just slapped boards to her head when she was a baby, and this is what happens. That's what we're told. It's hiding in plain sight, because we've had so many of these found. And you can't change the placement of the foramen magnum by strapping boards onto a head. So the actual way that the spinal cord goes through the skull is different. The plates are different. I'm very familiar with the plates in the skull from, massage therapy as well as doing cranial sacral therapy. These are different skulls. These are not Homo sapiens sapiens. This is a different breed. And I was fascinated because I first did a video on this, I think back in 2017, and now it's even acknowledged. When you do research, it shows up as a separate species. That's kind of crazy that they've allowed that out there. And as we see the headdresses of, say, Queen Nefertiti over on the left, and then we see the Pope, originally were they all wearing these to hide their big heads, or as just the fact that that's the shape of the hat they would need?
Right. And, they use the word bloodlines to keep it pure, but that's just basically another word for portal. So these beings can be possessed and manipulated.
Yes, and overshadowed by what we would call the Draco.
Oh, yeah.
Because ultimately, when we talk about like some of these beings and stuff and being part of we could look at it as a negative corporate conglomerate, which is controlled by these entities that are mostly on 4D and also a little bit of 5D, and can manifest sometimes occasionally in physical form on 3D. As we're talking about the Draco right now, they have people under their power that are totally 3D, 4D, just like us. 3D when they're conscious, and when they're asleep, they're on the 4D, so they can overshadow and take over people, and they are really doing a heck of a job right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I know it's been just getting worse, and it's because they're losing their grip. So they're going to go to different lengths to hold on to their power and even use other humans to go through to hold other people down into a lower vibration. It just gets so, the game they play gets so dirty.
There can be occasions where people have birth defects. Certainly there were some tribes that emulated the quote-unquote gods who are no gods at all. They're just physical beings, just like us, and did try to deform their heads because they had more technology, more intelligence. They were the upper aristocracy. They took over things here on planet Earth. And we could see, some of perhaps their cousins as well. Life is abundant on this multiverse. So when we look at the ancient stories out of Sumeria of the Annunaki, then we see the Igigi. And the Igigi, according to the stories, were, basically the worker bees for the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were the aristocracy. And then the Igigi rebelled and said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're like you guys. And so according to these legends, then humans were created. Or perhaps humans were downgraded, so to speak, in order to become a worker class, in order to become, something that could be manipulated. And thus we have the fall of man, because our potential is very high. We have so much potential in us. And we look at that second fused chromosome, we look at the ancient stories, and as I was saying, I don't think this was an upgrade, getting the reptilian DNA in us.
Oh, no, not at all. It was more of a, here, we're going to grab onto you and control you type of feeling that, or not feeling, but thing that they did to us. Otherwise we were true children of light, beings of light, and we had a lot of light in us, but that was corrupted to be controlled. And then they send us to these schools and teach us how to be little batteries for their institutions and stuff.
When we see what happened with the flood, like the flood story that comes from Sumeria is thousands of years older than the biblical flood story, as we've talked about. It way precedes it. Again, the Bible that we have is Reader's Digest condensed version of other books that were in publication, and it's also been revised, edited, and glossed over in so many ways to kind of hide the truth. Because, as we said many times, if we believe that the adversary, which is what Satan means, is running the show, ultimately, the Draco reptilians, who you could view as Satan and the devil, then they're not going to give us a straight story. If they're going to try to hide the truth. So when we look at that particular story, what happened? Well, you have Enlil saying there's just too many humans. Original sin has to do with humans really knowing that they could be like the gods, quote unquote, again, who are not gods, The creator of the universe doesn't make a sound when he walks through a garden. And he doesn't even have to ask, where are you guys? He knows. He's omniscient, right? Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And it's not even a he, it's an it. Because if you just isolate it down to a he, that's eliminating half of everything, so to speak. So again, oxymorons abound. And it just takes going into a little bit of common sense to see this. It becomes very, very obvious the more you study. So the big problem was there was too many humans. And they're getting harder to control. And when we look at the Tower of Babel, they're making a tower unto the sky. And we could just say that maybe that tower was simply everything that we have going on right now. The ability for space travel, and also building our Merkabas, which takes us way out of anybody's control. If your light body is activated, you're not stuck on 3D, 4D. You can go to 5 and 6. You could go way up past where they can go, because they're not of the higher vibrations.
Right. And one of the main things you can tell if like they're inside of you or controlling you is watching out for that emotion of anger, where you want to get vengeance on somebody, or you want to get back at somebody, or, you want to do this nasty thing to somebody. And then that's when you're being controlled. So the trick is to be able to rise up and out of that and just become a better person. Get yourself distracted, look at something funny, watch something funny. But ultimately what we all need to do here is just be good to each other.
I know all you guys know that there is a plague upon this land, right? And before this plague came, I've talked about, and many people have done studies showing that the sperm counts, for instance, in Western society are just plummeting. And I think it's mostly because of our lifestyle, the things that we're exposed to, the estrogens that we get from, drinking out of plastic containers and stuff, as well as the frequencies and vibrations that are all around us coming out of our routers and things. Now, last night we made sure we unplugged the router, and what a blissful night's sleep. And I feel like a new person today.
I know, it was great, which leads me into kind of just want to get rid of more things that bring in the EMF. You just want to become like a total minimalist when it comes to technology. Once you get a taste of that quietness, that stillness in your soul again, because I know most of you guys listening do remember from childhood that stillness that you found in your soul at times. Well, that stillness was from all the EMFs being away from you.
Right. So, we understand all the methods of control. And to get back what I'm talking about with the plummeting sperm rates, which is leading to, the global population is not going to be the projections that they were giving us a decade ago. In fact, the population is going to be declining. It is declining in many countries, like Japan, for instance, and many European countries. It's declining and it's starting to plummet. It's going to keep plummeting. This plague upon the land now, there's been studies done that have looked at the impact on sperm concentration. And one study found that sperm concentration was reduced by 516% because of exposure to the plague upon the land. And, I personally don't think it's very hard to put two and two together. Look at the ancient stories and say, well, what if they are still in control? What if we're getting to that point of population and knowledge and also light body activation and our consciousness changing, that, they're at the point where they want to create another great flood. And this is just another way that they're doing it. Not necessarily using an asteroid or manipulating a comet, or, putting a tractor beam on something and pulling it into the Earth's orbit. This time they're using other methods. They're using frequencies. They're using vectors, different vectors. And, good old Rex over at Leak Project did a video yesterday on NaNO. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, showing how this is everywhere. And we've talked about these funny clouds in the sky. This is how it's so easy to envision things being captured by the air currents and brought through the air vents and wafting down into your nose, where it's inhaled in goes into your bloodstream, builds up throughout your body. And this is all part of this, well, another flood story, but a flood story of a different type.
I know, using different technologies and different ways and different means to control us. So it's very important that we understand that we are being controlled by another entity, and it's, it's just really important. Once you do understand that there's, someone behind the curtain, like on Wizard of Oz, there is a controllers, then you're able to see more of the truth of how things are really put together.
It is. And at the same time, we don't want you guys to lose hope, because people don't just incarnate on this planet. And, you have incarnations in other places as well, because, we are multidimensional beings. And this whole life is just one page in a book of the growth of your soul over eons and eons and eons on its life's journey. So even though there's this horrible manipulation going on in this 3D, 4D realm that we're in, you're bigger than that. And this is just, not even a chapter. This is just a single page, in a massive, massive, perhaps, maybe it's something that is so big as far as expansive as far as your soul's journey through its soul growth, because this is all about soul evolution. And, this is the challenge. Many of us came here because, hey, look what's going on there. Let's go bust this system, and that's why we come here.
That's right. And just like kind of look at it in smaller ways, like we live today to prepare for tomorrow. We're living this life to prepare for the next life. So to bring us up and above these dark energies.
So most definitely the agenda is very, very well underway. There's a reason why Yeshua, Jesus, when he was talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he said, they're basically a synagogue of Satan, because they're spouting lies, and they're deceiving the people, and they're working for these entities, pushing their agenda of fear, manipulation, control, that whole line of thinking that stems from original sin, because you questioned or perhaps even had a sense of gnosis that your master didn't want you to have. And again, it goes back to these Annunaki stories and the stories of, these beings using humankind as a slave race. But that's not, who we are. We're actually able to go way above the Anunnaki.
Oh, right. It's an intimidation thing, because they realize once we understand how to work together and how to be together and how to use our energies together, which I know we've done on this channel to influence timelines for a better timeline, when that's truly discovered by the masses, oh my gosh, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. Mars holds the key to so much of our lost knowledge.
Yes, it does.
As always, guys, thanks for being part of the family, and make sure you are subscribed. Thanks also for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys, especially, obviously, with the powers that be trying to stop us at every moment. And anybody needs to reach us for sessions, it's EEARTS at protonmail.com or evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.